Good morning. Continuing meditations on progress. Are we progressing? Are we progressing in more than one direction at the same time? And so on. And today I want to think about war and technology. Now I know these don't seem very spiritual matters, but they are. Everything has a spiritual aspect to it. Particularly I want to talk about the connection between technological progress and warfare. When people talk about progress, they think they're talking about progress in science, but normally when you get down to it, they're talking about progress in technology and technique, which is closely related. And those progressions, those improvements or developments in technique and technology are very closely linked to our progress in waging war. There is a long-standing understanding by people who study these matters that it is war that is the engine of growth when it comes to that sort of progress. Now, according to the book of Revelation, the church is being disciplined and grown and developed in a somewhat hostile environment. This world is not an easy incubator for Christian faith, although it is the incubator that God has given us. And the reason it's not easy is because this world is dominated by opponents of Christ. And those opponents of Christ are characterized or summed up in three characters, three kind of catch-all super characters in the book of Revelation. The beast out of the sea, the beast out of the earth, and city called Babylon the Great. The two beasts and Babylon have different ways of, if you like, either obstructing or disciplining us on our way as we progress into the kingdom of God. Now I want to talk today about the first and the great beast, the one that's normally just called the beast of Revelation. He has lots of heads and horns, and they represent different manifestations of the beast, different governments, different organizations, different empires. But underneath, they all have a lot in common. In John's time, the beast was primarily the Roman Empire. And you can see by reading the book of Revelation a lot of, if you like, characteristics of Rome. But those characteristics are carried on. In fact, the symbols of the Roman Empire are still, generally speaking, the symbols of governments and empires today. But today I just want to talk about one particular characteristic of the beast, and that is his ability to use violence. It is the thing about the beast that causes people to give him honor and even worship him. Revelation 13:4. People worship the dragon because he'd given authority to the beast. They also worshipped the beast and asked, "Who is like the beast? Who can wage war against it?" So the beast's great characteristic is that he is successful in war. The use of violence. Obviously in the Revelation the beast is not just the one who is behind successful armies. He's also the police power. He has the ability to ban people from buying and selling. He has economic power. But his economic power is based on his ability to use violence more efficiently than anyone else. His progress, if you like, in the technology of violence. Now, the great instrument of Roman power in those days was the Roman legion. The legion was an army in its own right, a little army of between, say, 4,000 and 10,000 men. The numbers varied a bit, but it was highly organized. It had its own supply system, it had its own engineering section. It was everything you needed to get a highly organized machine, really, of men working together as one unit. And it was a machine. It was a combination of technique drill, training and practice with technology, the short sword, the Roman shield, the pilum, the Roman javelin, and the shovel. The Roman legions were great at shoveling. They could make earthworks and defences in no time at all. And there was nothing to match the Roman legion in the ancient world. In the time of John, it looked as though the Roman Empire was about to fall apart, but it didn't. It reformed itself on the basis of the power of the legions. The chaos was overcome. And that's why the beast has a great wound in the book of Revelation that should have been fatal, but is healed. The power of Rome was the power of the technology of warfare, the power of the legion. Funnily enough, one of the very few Latin words that you find in the mouth of Jesus is this word legion. You remember in Matthew 26, Peter wants to fight back when they're trying to arrest Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, and Jesus tells him not to. He says, "Put your sword back in its place, for all who draw the sword will die by the sword. Do you think I cannot call on my Father, and he will at once put at my disposal more than 12 legions of angels?" And yes, it is that Roman word, legiones in transliteration. 12 legions. I don't know if the Romans ever fielded 12 legions in the same place at the same time. If they did do, it would have been an unstoppable force. And what Jesus says is, well, that's not 12 legions of Roman men. My Father could give me 12 legions manned, that's the wrong word, angeled by angels. So there we are. The idea of the power of Rome resting on its ability to wage war, and particularly the techniques and technology of war in the Roman legion. Now, this is all ancient history. You say to me, Eric, things are different today. Well, they are different. Things have progressed. We don't now see the Roman legion as the height of military technology. We have unmanned drones that can destroy a road full of lorries. We have missiles. We have aircraft carriers. We have all kinds of massive technology and all kinds of tiny technology. There's a great deal of work being done on micro drones at the moment, tiny little killing machines. So yes, we have progressed, haven't we? We have developed new and cleverer ways to wage war. One theory about the virus is that it escaped from a lab looking at viruses which might be weaponized. We don't know if that's true. But yes, the technique of warfare has gone on tremendously. And the point I want to make this morning is that nearly all of our technology is piggybacked on military technology. All the progress, all that human cleverness. We tell ourselves that it's just human ingenuity, it's just human curiosity, but it's more than that. It's curiosity and ingenuity bent to the purpose of waging war. So even something as humane as penicillin, the discovery of antibiotics, enabled American Marines to wage war in septic jungles in the islands of the South Pacific. If it hadn't been for penicillin, that campaign might not have been successful. The massive increase in efficiency in aircraft and aeroplanes really came as a result of the two world wars. More progress was made in those two periods than at any other time in aviation history. Even the Concorde was basically just a civilian use of supersonic bomber technology. Space travel? Yes, space travel, based on all those ex-Nazis that the USSR and the USA smuggled out of Germany, because they were the ones who developed the V2 rocket, upon which all our space programs so far have depended. What I'm trying to say is that behind our progress is a rather worrying secret. We have progressed in methods of killing and dominating and destroying. When I was a boy, I was raised in the 1950s on two myths: the myth of the good war and the myth of human progress. And it wasn't until I started reading the Bible that I realized those two myths, which both have their very pretty but misleading advocates, are actually very closely connected. We are progressing, yes. And sometimes we can take these methods and use them to do more interesting things. The Hubble telescope would not have been possible if we had not developed these amazing methods of warfare. And so many other things. The internet began as a military network. Wi-Fi grew out of the battlefield electronics. Almost everywhere you look, yes, we are progressing. But we're progressing in techniques that might well kill us. The technology that we think we're using sometimes uses us. I'm not trying to make you paranoid. I'm just trying to say, let's be realistic. Whatever dreams of progress we may have, there is something else going on. The two harvests are still growing. The harvest of righteousness is growing intertwined with the harvest of evil. So be realistic, Christians. Yes, use the technology, but use it carefully. Use it understanding that it has the ability to bite back. So there you are. That's my second meditation on progress. I'll be taking the idea, progressing it, I hope, tomorrow. In the meantime, be blessed as you rest in God. Bye-bye.